Mackie said just she was working with force every day. And then
Mackie. Or Maxine.
You invite to like this. You're in here.
She said, yeah, it's
They don't have
they don't
Well, they don't
Are you gonna sit with me?
No, because we're gonna save the seats for people that need them. But you sit, and I'll stand right here with you. Okay? If I need you to help me out. No, yeah, I'll be right there. I'll be right here now. In that spot right there.
You better not.
I won't move. Here's my video. I'll stay.
Do you know what I did? You know what I did?
No,
So I figured.
Why you can't play? Yeah, I don't know. Exactly, Lily.
Son.
They caught him.
We're stopped. Really, really does. When it's a matter of fact, he goes nuts.
Because Leslie, you need to, you can, let's go sit next to Joe.
I'll sit in the
Go
back.
sit next to Joe.
I have a chair in my
Yeah,
car.
come sit over. Well, where my kids are standing.
You could sit next to all the young, go sit next to Joe. John and him and.
Because she's young.
She's young.
Oh.
Louise is holding you up. That's nice of her.
What the doctor said?
He just said, I did a pretty good job on bending up my leg.
That was good.
He said there's like a slight, he said he's not sure on the kneecap, but he said even if it is, it's not something that they would fix. And he said he thinks that there may be some, he says definitely broken blood vessels and maybe a couple of torn muscles. Says if it doesn't get better by next week, call the orthopedist. My primary care, yeah.
Well, when I was in New York, I thought I was a big shot, and we were shopping, and I tripped over a Christmas tree, and I broke my toe. Yeah. And the doctor said you can't do anything.
Bill, if I
about
can
it,
remind
and I
everyone to
have
please turn off your cell phones for the service. There are a few extra chairs. Please don't be bashful. The family has been seated.
You've been giving instructions? Esoinayel hehari. Me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shemayim va'aretz. Al yitain lamot raglecha al yanum shamlecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzilcha yadi minecha. Yomam Hashemesh lo yakeka. V'yareach b'layla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra. Yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeit chavolecha me'atavi Adonai. 121st Psalm. I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. The protector will not slumber. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your soul. The Lord will guard your going out and your coming in. From this time forth and forevermore. Elohim Eloheinu, our God and God of all generations. Thou governest all things with infinite wisdom and mercy, and who guidest the destinies of all of humankind. As a parent, have you loved us and showered your blessings upon us. Therefore, we shall not murmur even when sorrow befalls us. But with humility and unfaltering trust, we shall accept your decrees. In joy and in sorrow alike, we praise your goodness and acknowledge your justice. We remember that we are but strangers upon earth. Like a shadow, our life flees away. Help us, O God, so to walk in your sight. When the few years of our earthly pilgrimage are ended, we may be ready to meet our end with tranquility. Be we lift for comfort and strength. One of our beloved is taken from us, and a link is broken in the chain of love which binds us together. Though we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no evil, for you are with us. Praised, O eternal God, in all your dispensations. Sanctified be your name, now and forevermore. There is perhaps no piece of literature that's used more often in moments like this than the words of the 23rd Psalm. And I know it because it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Everybody thinks that's the reason that we recite it. And the truth is that when King David wrote this psalm so many centuries ago, I was taught by one of my teachers a long time ago. I was taught that King David had something else in mind. He was really saying something to the mourners. And what he was saying to mourners is, don't get stuck in the valley of the shadow of death. You gotta walk through it. It's important to do that. It's important not to just be there and to constantly reflect on death. One has to think about the person who has lived, whose memory lives beyond, and try to walk in those steps. So I'm going to read it in Hebrew and say it in English. If you know some of the words, please say them with me. Adonai roi lo echzor b'nafeshi yarbitzini, al mei menuchotin alim. Nafshi shavei v'yanchini b'maglei tzedek l'man shemo. Gam ki elech b'getz ha'mavet, lo yiwara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha mishantecha, hema yinachamon. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai. Yishanta v'Hashem en roshi kosir v'aya. Ach tov v'chesed. Yirgefuni kol yemei chayai. Shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamei. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. I would now like to call upon some members of the family who want to share some thoughts. First, we'll call upon grandson Harry Miller, and then Mindy, and then Larry.
1 week ago, I was informed that Zadie's health condition had turned dire. That day was also the first time that I had cried in over 10 years. It wasn't a lot of crying, really only a moment, about 3 seconds where I truly felt the pain that I was about to lose someone so close to me. That moment was the only time since Zadie became sick all those years ago that I ever lost hope that he would make a full recovery. Immediately after shedding those few tears, I went back to believing that everything would be okay. Even when I picked up the phone to call my mom after receiving the ominous "call me when you get home" text, I believed that everything would be all right. I know to some it might seem naive or ignorant to believe things would be okay when everything is so clearly screaming at you that it's not. But who cares? Who cares that no one has ever been cured of dementia? Why couldn't he be the first? It ended up the same anyway. I'd like to think that I'm not an idiot. I know what it meant when he was diagnosed with LVD, but there's still so much that humans don't know about the universe and themselves. They make new medical discoveries every day, so I had to hope that things would turn out all right. Not for me, and for him. Growing up, Zadie always believed in me with whatever I did. So when it came time, I believed in him too. As a child, whenever I was asked in school how many people were in my immediate family, I would always end up telling them 6. Myself, Mom, Dad, Aiden, Bubby, and Zadie. I didn't understand that the term had the meaning of immediate generation before or after oneself, but instead as the people who I would see the most. I was fortunate to have Bubby and Zadie live within 10 minutes of me during my childhood. Whether it was for our family dinners, supporting me when I was playing soccer or baseball, Aiden's karate, our frequent sleepovers, annual cruises, or just hanging out with the fam, Zadie was there for all of it. When I was in high school, I would go to Bubby and Zadie's house every day during my free period, and every day Zadie would offer to make me an ice cream sundae while we watched TV or conversed about life. There were countless times when I tried to teach him how to play video games or show him whatever other strange thing I was into. I don't think he ever really got it, but nevertheless, we watched and he listened intently. And I know that we both just enjoyed spending that time together. There are so many stories that I could tell about my Zadie, but to be honest, I think sifting through those memories would probably break me. Zadie was a constant part of my life. Well, I don't know whether he entirely understood me, and to be fair, I don't entirely understand me. But he was one of the first people in my life content on just letting me be me, and for that, I will always be grateful. Love you, Zadie.
I'm so lucky and honored to have had George in my life for the last 40 years. I remember the first time I met George. My mom was inside getting ready for a date, and my best friend and I were on the front porch waiting to give this guy the 3rd degree. Just what every guy wants, some obnoxious kids hanging around. This man walked up with this really thick head of white hair and a trench coat. We grilled him about why was he wearing the coat. He told us he was in the FBI. George always making jokes. We know the date went well because we were all lucky enough to have George in our lives for the next 40 years. George taught Michael and I so many things like kindness, unconditional love, and how to make people laugh. We know now how George loved to tell jokes, but the thing that Michael and I valued most about George was how much he loved our mom and all of us. George was a man with 3 kids of his own, but he always treated Michael and I with the same love he showed Robin, Cherry, and Larry. How incredibly lucky we were that Mom found somebody with the biggest heart and plenty of room for all of us to feel loved. George was also a romantic. He always wrote love notes and would draw her pictures. Even when George was sick, up until a couple of months ago, he was still drawing hearts with GT loves MT in them. You can't get any sweeter than that. We were so lucky to grow up with George. Not too many stepdads coach their stepkids' sports teams, go to every school event, and take them on very long car and plane rides like to Cooperstown, Florida, and Israel. Yes, he did offer us a quarter to keep quiet, but there was always love behind it. Well, we had so many fun memories growing up, like the time George started a huge mashed potato fight, and it took us days to get those potatoes out of our hair. But we always had fun. George wasn't a boastful man, or a show-off, but there were a couple of things in life he was proud of. He was proud of the fact that people would come up to him and think he was Phil Donahue. that he met Frank Perdue and went to the factory, and that he was the second best Monopoly player in the world. We all loved George's humbleness. While we had many memories, wonderful memories as kids, we had even more wonderful memories as adults. Seeing the world with George was so special to Michael's family and mine. He went with Michael's family to Israel a couple of times and to Europe with my family. He enjoyed traveling so much and eating his way through the world. And there was always so much fun, food, and laughter. George never met an ice cream cone he couldn't eat. George had so much love for all of his family. While this is such a difficult time for all of us, we can continue to remember all the special memories we had with George over the years and think of how lucky we all were to have a wonderful husband, dad, stepdad, Zadie, grandpa, father-in-law, and friend enrich all of our lives with kindness, love, and laughter. While George isn't here with us, I will give you his favorite advice. Always go for the red and orange if you want to win. And anyone who's played Monopoly with him for hours or days knows exactly what I mean. George, you will always be loved and always be in our hearts.
I'm a little different. I didn't write everything down. I put it on my iPhone. I'm in the midst of playing Monopoly on my iPhone. So I'm always expecting my father to tell me that I need to buy Park Place and Boardwalk. So I put my notes down. So my name is Lawrence Tatz. To some of you in the front row, I am the favorite child. My father is George. I want to start off by saying thank you to Mackie. The day you went from cats to tats, I knew Dad would have a wonderful and adventurous life. Your joy for life and love for others has always been transparent, and this has shined through to Dad, and for that, I will always be grateful. My father was a great teacher. I want to share a couple of things that he taught me. Early on in life, I was probably about 8 years old. I was in my driveway with a friend of mine, and my father took his thumb, put it out of the zipper, walked around and said, "Do this in school." I remember that like it was yesterday. My father also taught me to be fair. He told me to treat everyone like shit no matter what they look like. It's made me the manager that I am today. One of the most important things that my father taught me later on in life is that every time I spoke with my father and I hung up, he told me he loved me. Now when I speak with my friends or family, I tell them I love them. You know, the final thing I want to let everyone know, my father gave me a family motto to live by. You know, it might not be the cleanest motto, but
Be careful.
I'm going somewhere anyway. But got me into office as it did him. So I want to share that motto with him and with you. So for the children, please ignore it. You know, so it's tits for tats and pussy for all. And I knew it. I'm hanging up the phone now.
But that's him.
I love you, Dad.
I do want to thank all three of you for your. I do have to tell you, things have really changed. Wait till you hear this. Things have really changed in the last few years. Or I should say in the last day. I did another funeral this morning and somebody used the F word. What? Well, you should. I mean, it's not policy. The poet has written, birth is a beginning and death is a destination. Life itself is a journey, the going and growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity, and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness and from ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or from strength to weakness and back, often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, and from fear to faith. From defeat to defeat until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, of sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death is a destination. But life itself is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death, to life everlasting. Beloved family, dear friends, I hope you will permit me just a few words to add to these very beautiful, even if inappropriate. I have to say that. I don't mean that. Beautiful words that have been shared about someone who was loving, somebody who was caring. The part that I like best was the person who liked ice cream. Did you like hot touch sundaes?
Everything.
Well, that's my downfall, hot touch sundaes. It's hard to be here on a day like today. There's nothing easy about it. I realize that moments like this, as I have said so often over the years, moments like this are really bittersweet. Bitter because death has come, and while I know, Harry, you said you hope that maybe something will get better, you know? A person can live without food and water for a long time. They can't live without hope for a long time. And the day sometimes comes, as it has for George, when that life has come to an end. And while that's bitter because he's gone, and you have all of these memories, mostly good, but listen, I know enough. I've been doing this a long time. It's not always good. Every once in a while, there's parts of a human being that we say, I'm not so sure about that. But mostly we want to remember all of those parts that lift us up. Those are the things that we ought to remember. Those are the things we ought to pass on to the next generation. But that's what this bitterness is about. It's the fact that someone who was loved and loving has been taken from his family circle. But there is a sweetness to this moment as well, because nobody wants their loved ones to suffer. Even if he didn't know he was suffering, you knew he was suffering. And when you called me to the nursing home the other day, I could see myself, I've been here so many times, that this is better. So this is the sweet part of this. Never easy, but there is a sweet part to this as well. We are taught at moments like this to rob death of its ultimate victory. And how do we do that? We do that by living life as it is ours to live. Harry, you said that he accepted you for whatever it was. And that's your life to live. And he left that in your mind. Otherwise, you wouldn't have brought it up to him. He was saying to all of us, we don't have to agree with everything that everybody does. But what we have to do is accept them as human beings because we're all created B'Tselem Elohim in the image of God. And it's important for us to do that. Yes, of course, we hope that all of our loved ones will live a full and lengthy life, full years. 86 isn't bad. So we had 81 good ones. And we all can only hope that you as a family will learn to rob death of its ultimate victory by living life as long as it is yours to live. We are also reminded at moments like this how sacred life is. This is not just somebody who's lived and he now died and that's it. This is sacred space, all of this. We call this place a Beit Chaim, a house of life. Why? Because as you walk around the cemetery, you will see that people place not just names, but they place words on a stone because those words remind them of who that person was. It's important that we do that. And that's what makes this place sacred. It's what makes this time sacred. I know that you as family, you spoke about who he was. My job is not to speak about who he was. You guys knew him best. We'll talk a little bit. My job as the old rabbi is to give advice. And I want to do that. First is to understand our purpose in being here. Our purpose, to be sure, is to bring consolation into the mourners. That goes without saying. That is something we do in our tradition. But there is something more to that. Our purpose is to bring him a sense of immortality. And what do I mean by that? You're not him, so how can you bring him immortality? There's a wonderful book. It's called The Brief History of the Dead. Brief History of the Dead. The author tries to help us understand something. There may be 50 of us here today. We all believe something different about what's going to happen to us when we die. It's a mystery. We don't really know. When people call me and say, Rabbi, what's going to happen when I die? I said, I have two answers. Number one, I don't know because I have not been there. And number two, I am not anxious to find out. And while I say that with some sense of humor, I say it realistically. I don't know. But in this book, he says, no matter what it is, if there are people who believe that there is such a thing as life beyond life, in whatever form it takes, how long does that person's life last? In the history of the dead. And he answers it and he says, a person's life lasts as long as his memory. As long as his memory. So I always try to say to grandchildren especially, or in some cases, great-grandchildren, and in some cases, of course, the children too. I always try to say to the next generation, it's not just to remember those moments. Yes, it's good to remember them, but you also have to teach them. Teach those moments to the next generation so that they will know. So that when they live their lives, they might say, well, my dad or my mom or my grandma said such and such about so-and-so. That helps to keep them alive and it gives them that sense of immortality that every person is entitled to have. That's up to you. That's what it means to live life, not to let death become the victor. Your living life becomes the victory. So you have tasks as a family, and I believe this with all my heart and soul. First task is to grieve, to shed your tears, to understand that someone is gone, And they cannot be replaced because they're unique. And who he was in life, I should say what he did in life that's not who he was. He did what he did because of the kind of person he was. And that's the difference. Most of us talk about the fact that so-and-so did this and this and this and this, as if that's to define them. It's not. He did what he did because of the kind of person he was on the inside. And so you have to grieve for your loss because it's significant. Secondly, you have to wonder about this thing, birth and death, and what happens. And no matter what it is, and each of us here has a different perspective. Each one of those perspectives is okay. There's not one that is any better than any other as long as you live by it. And if you live by it and say, I want to be remembered for what I did in life, then do that. That's the important thing. Third task is to remember. Remember what he did in those fancy days, those wonderful days, those trip days, those eating days. It's important. We all have to eat. And he understood that. So remember all of that. And lastly, and especially to the next generation, emulate it and teach it. Because that's how we do give that to someone else. So we're here today to be here with family. We're also here today to make our lives better because of his. Maybe we can elevate something that we do as individuals because he did it. Culinary arts was his craft. And that's good. We all need it. He was gentle and kind, genuinely so. And that's important. He was liked by many people. That doesn't just happen. It happens because of the kind of person he was. He had a sense of humor. Now, as your dad, he might have bawled you out. I'm just kidding. But he had a sense of humor. He'd probably be here laughing at what you said. He was present. He was there. And whether it was for you as his children, you as his stepchildren, you as his grandchildren, he was present. Yeah, he played Monopoly and he was a champ, but he didn't get first place. You know, I mean, if you're going to talk about somebody being a world-renowned player of anything, you can cheat a little bit. Better than saying what you said. Cheat a little bit and say he was number one in the world. He lived his values through his actions. And that's the important part of his life. Yeah, he was artistic. He loved sweets, not just ice cream. He liked sweets. He had a deep and abiding love for Israel. However that came about, whether it was because of his son or whether it was because of his genuine desire to understand Israel. He had a love for Israel. And I suppose that were he around here today, he would be like the rest of us, trying to understand what the future is going to be. We want safety for our people. But mostly he was a family man. Mostly he cared about giving that love to each of you. And whether it was your almost 40 years of marriage, only 38, okay. Whether it was your long marriage together, when you brought comfort to each other, when you brought joy to each other, and companionship to each other, and presence to each other. I don't mean presence, I mean presence. When you brought that to each other, that made your life together fulfilled. And so those are things that we celebrate today. And I can only hope and pray that for you as family, you'll find strength in who he was and how he tried to live his life in his highest moments. I want to end with this poem because I use it a lot, and I think it's appropriate. I think it helps us to understand this moment. Poet wrote, when I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give them what you need to give me. You can love me most by sharing your joys and multiplying your good deeds. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not in your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our tradition teaches. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. It is in that spirit then that we resolve to face our grief without self-pity, but with bravery and integrity, keeping before us forever the blessings that God conferred upon us in this life that he but lent to us for these many decades. And in a world where our most precious goods are perishable, let us resolve to honor our beloved dead by being so good to the living, so kindly, so understanding, so forgiving, so transcendent of pettiness. In our love for him, we shall hearken to those who remain and who need us in our strength. May it be through new relationships and new service to humanity that we make good our loss, and in the beauty of our own lives erect the noblest monument to our morn day. And thus the beauty of his life shall ever abide among us all as a living and loving benediction. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakah. Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach Me'atavi Adonai. God has given, God has taken away. Praise be the name of God, now and forevermore. And let us all say together. The rising of the sun and then its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the blueness of the sky and in the heat of the summer, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. We are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we will remember him. When we have achievements based on his, we will remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live. He now is a part of us. We remember him. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar etchem b'tzalmo v'zan kilkel etchem b'torah, v'himit etchem b'din v'natah b'tokechem chai olam. Baruch atah Adonai. Ayan ha'amet. We praise you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe. Forms us in the divine image, nourishing and sustaining us in your goodness, causing all of us to die, planting immortal life within us. Praise you, O God, the judge of truth. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני רב ואושר מכלכל חיים בחסד וחיי הכל ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורפא חולים ומתיר אסורים. Eternal is your might, O God. All life is your gift. Great is your power to save. With love you sustain the living, with great compassion you give life to all. Send help to the falling and healing to the sick. You bring freedom to the captive and keep faith with those who forever sleeping with us. We praise you, O God, who implants eternal life within us. soul to stay. In our tradition and in most cemeteries, it is considered to be an act of love and kindness to bury the dead. In this cemetery, we are not only asked to do that, but we are asked to at least cover the casket, which means that all of you are invited to come forward after the immediate family has had a chance to put dirt on his casket. And then all of us are invited to come forward to do the same.
mean, I had some in the freezer that I brought.
I need the family back here. We're not done. Oh, you thought I was letting you off the hook. What? Oh, let's do that first. Thanks, Jim. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The spirit returns to God who gave it. It is only the house of the spirit, which we have laid in the bosom of the earth. But the spirit itself cannot die. And here too our dear ones continue in loving remembrance of those to whom they were precious. See the mercy of God, the soul of our beloved George Tatz. Grant him that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. Though no human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, no mind has compassed it, still it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion, now and forevermore. So I would ask you now, your family and friends, for those of you who would like to, please rise that we might recite together the words that have been hallowed by centuries of faith, the words that have been glorified in our tradition, the words of the Kaddish prayer. Yitkadav Yitkadash Melava. Yoma Divrach Elutei. Yamis Malchutei. Vayechon V'Yomechon. Vayedechol Beit Yisrael. V'Agalar V'Zman Kori. Amen. Yeshimei Rabba Mevorach. Le'olam u'le'olmei Maya. Yitbarach v'Yittabach. Yitba'ar v'Yittamam v'Yitnaseh. Yitadar v'Yitalev Yitalal. Shemei Yekutsha v'Rechu. Elam in Kol Birchata v'Shirata. Ushtekata v'Nechamata. Amiran v'Alma v'Yimaru. Amen. Yeh Shalom Arabah min Shemaya v'Chayim. Aleinu v'Al Kol Yisrael v'Amen. Useh Shalom v'Mama. Hu Ya'aseh Shalom. Aleinu v'Al Kol Yisrael. Yom Alirachamim Shachim B'Amamim. V'Mitzvah Menuchim V'Chum Tachat K'nfei Hashchina. Im Kadoshim Ta'orim K'Zohar Harakim Azurim. Et Nishmat Gesher Ben Yitzchak Miriam. Malach Lolamo. Bala Rachamim. Yastireu Besetu Kinafav Rolamim. Vayetzvor Betzvor HaChaim Et Nishmato. Imai Hinu Kalatov Yanuach B'Shalom. All Mishkavod V'Nemo Amen. O God, full of compassion, eternal spirit of universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence of George Tatz, who has entered into eternity. God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession, and may his repose with peace. The part of whom we now remember has been called unto the peace of life eternal. He shall still live on earth in the acts of goodness he has performed, and in the hearts of those who will ever cherish his memory. We pray that the beauty of his life will ever abide among us all as a living and loving benediction. And may the source of peace send peace unto all you who mourn. And may God comfort all the bereaved among us and in Israel, and all the nations and the families of earth. And let's all say together. George, Adonai, go your way. God is called. Lech Adonai Yema, go your way, may God be with you. Lach lefanecha tzidkecha, kavod Adonai yasvecha. May righteousness go before you. The glory of God receive you. Let's all say together.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. That does conclude our service.